Hello, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and today we're looking at chapter 507 of Fairy Tale, named Voice. Now, normally you do a 5-point review, you break down all the little points and things like that, but this isn't really one of those chapters because, in honesty, not a lot of things happen in it. I'll break down what I saw of it and enjoyed of it and what it meant to me, and then I'm sure you can read the chapter and make up your mind about the rest of it. So without further ado, let's get into the main points of this review. So the first thing I want to talk about is the whole resolution of the Natsu and Grey thing. Now there's a few points you want to take off this, and a lot of people have mentioned this in the Reddit, is number one, how the hell did she stop the attack? Being that they were more or less, they're not necessarily going full power, but they're gearing towards a powerful attack. And generally you always go by the idea of the she's Erza thing. So that kind of doesn't really get answered. It's just one of them, I guess, the things of this story. She's Erza, she's the older sister, you know, she's the older member, the senior member. She's always kicked their ass and looked after them when they were young. That's played on, you know, no problems with that. Just how did you defend the attack with no repercussion? That is an issue. I don't really mind it, but it's a big thing in the community and one of the reasons why they get hate, and it's just one of those things. What I did enjoy about that though was the message. So the message really was, when a person chooses to go down their own path, they inevitably will get into a position where they will have to cross family, friends, because they have a different opinion. So the message really was, even though you have a different opinion, you don't necessarily need to hate the other person. And it's often found online and in life when people have a different opinion to yourself, whether it's a political debate or something like that. There's always a hatred that's for some reason attached to it, and this is a message portrayed and said previously by the master, now as a conduit through Erza, to say the exact same message, that you don't have to hate each other just because you have different views, you know. And she does the whole look at each other, are you friends or enemies, what's going on? Basically, in a nutshell, she sorts it out. Now there's a whole thing where, you know, look, you know, she loves them both, the family, they shouldn't fight. Natsu has his own memories of her, he remembers, which I liked. So she had the flashback with at the Tower of Heaven, I guess it's called, with Jellal, and you know, she was crying because Shimon died or Simon died. And then, you know, Grey had this other thought about her being integral to Fairy Tale and Fairy Tale needing her and she needing Fairy Tale to get by. So there was all this whole element of that. Then we get like an afterthought with Juvia and basically Lucy turning up, them both fainting. So that takes them out of the picture for a while. Their kind of situation gets picked up by Eileen. I will touch on Eileen in a second. We have another fight. Now I do want to say, August is a beast. To take care of basically, you know, a whole guild, although they're like 5 or 6 members, and you know, and Jellal, who is a powerful being in his own right, speaks volumes of August about what the hell is going on with that hair. Seriously, he needs to sort something out. You know, he needs to cut the hair. The hair looked dope as hell. It looked really weird. It looked like all puffed up and stuff like that. It looked like he was wearing a wig. You know what I mean? It was one of those weird things, but the dude's got skills that pays the bills. Basically, the guy's got skills. He's wiping them out. He is kicking their asses. So that's Jellal. That's, you know, that's Midnight. That's everybody. You know, that's Mr. Poison, Dragon Slayer, Eric as well, Cobra. He's dealing with them all. You know, he was like, oh, I can hear you. And he looks at me and goes, I can hear you too. And I just like that. There's just so much to him. I really like the way that thing's going. So it looks like they're in a dire situation. That is pretty much all we get from that. So we want to see what Jellal can pull out his back, because the holy, you know, the holy chariot thing that he does, brilliant. What can he pull out of his ass now? He was considered one of the 10, you know, saints at one point. Let's just see if he can live up to that name. So that's beastness in itself. And then we get this whole thing with Irene. Now, for those that actually watch my Fairy Tale videos, bearing in mind it hasn't been many recently, for the most time I've been harping on about what the situation is with Eileen, and I'll break it down again. Sorry for those that have seen this, and this is pretty much what it comes down to. Eileen, one of her specialties is separation. She's been harping on to Zeref about separating his emotions, his good side, his weakness, and stuff like that from his cold, hard, calculated self. So I guess the idea comes from the theory of the perfect weapon, the perfect soldier. A perfect weapon, a soldier, is a person who's like a super athlete, who's got the build, the talent to do things, but cutting off all emotions to make that cerebral decision to kill, on a whim or on a moment's notice. And I think that's possibly the direction that Eileen has gone through. So there's a few things to think about. First of all, Erza was an orphan. She was a child. Now, how is it possible that she was a child, although they're meant to be the same age, and Eileen is older? There could be two reasons for this. Number one, Eileen separated herself when she was very young. It was one of her earlier magics, and that's why Erza was young, abandoned by herself, an orphan, so on and so forth. So that's one thing. Or it could be that was a piece of her. Because it was a piece of her, she created a younger form because it was small amounts of energy, and therefore it was a child rather than a grown-up adult. And that power basically manifested and matured into a grown woman, that is Erza. It also could explain why she can't really die and she always comes back and gets these powers up. Because Eileen, the original host, is a super beast. Just somebody really powerful. Now, that's basically what I think it is. It was basically to kill off her emotions, because she does say, look, I am you and you are me. Effectively what's going to happen is going to be a battle supremacy between both bits of Eileen to find out exactly who is the right one. It kind of reminds me of the whole situation with Metal Gear Solid, where there was three brothers, Solid, Liquid, Solidus, and basically they tried to create the perfect soldier, and it turned out the best soldier was the one that had the weaker genes, which turned out to be Solid Snake, basically. So that's essentially what I think is going to happen. It's a similar kind of concept. Essentially, Erza is going to find a way to win. They're going to unite. Her power should go through the roof. I don't want it to be a case Erza dies and Eileen dies. That would be weird. I'd rather have it that Eileen basically we find a way to beat her. Essentially, they go back together, and now it's the good side of Erza that takes over the proper body and goes from there. Also, another theory that might throw a plot hole into this: if Eileen and Erza, when they separated, they were both children. The possible reason why Eileen seems a little bit older is because of the 7-year time skip that happened with Tenrojima, because technically Eileen wasn't really there. She probably had 7 more years to mature and develop her magic. That's possibly one of the reasons why she may be old looking, other than possibly being already older and then making her into a child because of a smaller amount of her energy. If it was that makes sense. Or she was actually younger as well, and then she just separated herself and she's just matured because of the 7-year time skip. And really Erza was frozen in time because of the whole Tenrojima fairy spear thing. But anyway, that is basically my thoughts on the Eileen Erza thing. We'll get answers later on. Some good points, some bad points, some sentimental points in this chapter. All thoroughly enjoyable. I'm always a fan to the end. Loyalty with Mishima. And hopefully we'll get a decent chapter next week as well. Let's move on. Let's work towards bigger and brighter things, and hopefully we'll see this through to the end. Long live Fairy Tail. I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Peace.